Much like oral histories, historic newspaper accounts give evidence of real people's lives. They don't tell a history. They don't tell a history like a textbook, but they give the richest information about real people in the real world of any kind of primary source that I've used. And I love teaching with historic newspapers for that reason. Also, they're less filtered by memory than oral histories are, because oral histories are often recorded many years later, and memory fades and memory changes, but not historic newspapers if they're contemporary with the events that you're studying. They also lend themselves really well to keyword searching using historic language. So many of the pointers that I gave about searching historic language with oral histories apply also to historic newspapers. They offer a real opportunity for students to learn from their mistakes, to learn from their searches, revise their strategies, and those are all key critical thinking skills. It almost makes kids into apprentice historians when they learn how to search historical language. You can also search historic newspapers by date. So if you have a certain date that you're looking for, a certain time period, you can limit your search to those dates and start building a picture of the lives and the environment that veterans were returning to after whatever war you're studying, or whatever war your kids are relating to because of their own personal connections. Newspapers, as is the case with most primary sources, really do not provide a textbook approach to history, and that's something you really need to understand about all primary source teaching. If you really want a full picture, you're going to have to combine primary sources with secondary sources, and I'll be talking about that a little bit more in a later segment of this presentation. I mentioned before that I was a little bit intrigued by the idea of the influenza because of an oral history that I read that talked about the soldiers being sprayed, and there was more information in that oral history about the hospital that he worked in and how it was made for 1,200 people and they had 4,000 at a time, and that was at the height of this influenza epidemic that followed the war in 1918. Actually, it was during the war as well. So I have linked an article from Chronicling America, which is a fairly new collection from the Library of Congress of historic newspapers. Let's take a look at one example. This is a little hard to read, but if you look farther, you will see navigation tools. You'll see zoom. If I click on the zoom button, you'll see that the text becomes larger and larger. It has to refresh each time. You can move it around like this in Chronicling America. The article I'm interested in is this one. So I could also draw a zoom box around this and zoom in only on this article. We'll see if that works. And there it's almost readable. Okay? This is a report from November 24th, 1918. So it is the first numbers that came out and were published of the number killed, the number missing, the number wounded. But what I was interested in was how many died of disease. So we're going to scroll down. And I think maybe in order for you to see this even better, we'll draw a zoom box around a very specific portion. And there you see, killed and died of wounds, 36,154, but died of disease, 14,811. Now, I'm interested in following up on that. And these are numbers that are significant enough that I think I will find something about disease at the end of World War I. Another piece that this article covers is the lists of people coming home. And you can imagine how interested people on the home front were in finding out when their young soldiers' division was coming home. This is Division 31, 34, 38, 39. I looked at this because I had discovered that my great-uncle Tony was in Division 32, which was the famous Rainbow Division, and it's not on this list. So I have more follow-up questions about the Rainbow Division. So I guess what I'm pointing out is that you can follow a line of inquiry in any direction from one newspaper article. You could follow up on Spanish influenza. You could follow up on the Rainbow Division. There are so many pieces to historic newspapers to follow up on that this is really true inquiry, as long as you ask good questions and you follow up on those questions. And these aren't yes or no answers. These are questions that require thought, further research, and that is a real strength of working with primary sources.